Lately, I have been thinking a lot about Chris Marsh from Project Runway Season 4, and he um, is a costume designer. He's not a fashion designer. I think that people should not get upset if somebody says that you're not a fashion designer and you're a costume designer. I'd rather be called a costume designer than a seamstress or a tailor. See, some people create fashion, like John Galliano, Alexander McQueen, um, Karl Lagerfeld, Gianni Versace. Well, Gianni Versace is dead, but those designers in Europe and in the United States and everywhere in the world who, with a pen and pencil, start drawing and create something new, and then you sew it, you put it on the runway, and then you sell it to mass market, and people start buying your clothes. That is what a real fashion designer stands for. He's a fashion designer. Now, if you create costumes, um, then you create costumes. You create costumes for the opera. You create costumes for, theater events, parties. It could be anything. I think that when Chris Marsh came into the show, I think that he was chosen because of his ability to create things, not necessarily high fashion. At the end of the show, he is not going to be chosen as an innovative designer or as a creative designer, because everything that he's done for every show, for every episode in this new season of Project Runway, he has not done anything creative. Not even as a designer, he has made something that would be sellable. Only as a costume designer, he might get a job. But for instance, the best thing that he's ever done was that long sweater dress, and that was a sweater. That was sweater material. That was knit. You just sew around it and you create a fabulous garment. But that is not innovation. That is not creativity. What Christian does, what Rami does, that is design. That is a designer's real work. That's what a designer does. I'm not putting Chris down because he's a costume designer. I, of course, I'm not a costume designer, but if I was on a show, or if I was doing something and somebody said, "Well, you're more of a costume designer." I don't think that I would be upset if I knew that I was designing clothes, but somebody said, "Well, your clothes are very costumey." I think that I'd rather be called a costume designer than a seamstress or a tailor. See, there's a lot of people who create clothes for drag queens, who create clothes for burlesque shows, or who they do costumes, period. They do clothes for, and then they move up the ladder, like Mitzi, who created Talia's wedding dress, and then they think there are fashion designers. Well, they are not fashion designers. um, they're still seamstresses. They're not, or they're still, they create costumes. But I rather be called a costume designer than a seamstress, because at least I have the respect of some people that maybe they would hire me to create something for them, and then I would still have a job. But I rather be creating a costume and or creating, of course, a real design than being a seamstress like Wilhelmina at Ugly Betty. I mean, I would rather be called a costume designer. Basically, this video is for Chris Marsh. I made this video for him because I really like him. I really like him as a person. He's an amazing designer, and he's a costume designer. He's not gonna make it to the top three, and I would be surprised if he made it to the top three, because everything that he would make, it wouldn't nobody would ever buy it unless he worked for a Halloween costume shop. And there's nothing to be upset about my comments about him, because I'd rather be creating something for a costume Halloween costume shop than not creating anything at all and just be a seamstress or a tailor. That is why I'm opposed to sewing things for people in general. I rather create a design and try to sell it to the boutiques, and or go to the showrooms and have people that might want to buy my clothes. But you know, it takes time to be a fashion designer. You just can't come on the show because you've done clothes in the past and think that you're gonna go to Bryant Park. It's not going to happen. Um, anyway, so I've been thinking a lot about Chris, and I'm hoping that my comments were not making him sad or upset, because I know that a lot of people think that I have been criticizing him very badly, and I haven't. It's just my point of view, and as a fashion designer and a fashion collector, and my knowledge of fashion, I respect what he does, but he is not America's next top fashion designer.